And I was like, oh, holy smokes. Then I started thinking about dopamine. Why would it be if I had patients that I could tell were driven by.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Kidney Coach YouTube channel. I am naturopath Fiona Chin, co-founder of Kidney Coach, and Kygenesis, a range of supplements designed for those diagnosed with chronic kidney disease wanting to reduce their creatinine and bump up their EGFR. And I'm joined again today by the wonderful, amazing Jessie Anna Seville. Jessie is a renal dietitian. She is the CEO, head of Kidney Nutritional Institute. She leads a team of amazing renal dietitians there that do all things renal related dietary stuff. But what I really love about Jessie Anna and her team is they're really big on treating the cause and not the symptoms, treating the person, not the disease. And
So, all right. So let's go ahead and talk. We're talking about L-tyrosine, one of the amino acids. This amino acid is probably one of my most favorite amino acids that I'm most interested in because it impacts me personally quite a bit because it drives into dopamine, which is something that's really interesting to me because I tend to be just a little bit ADD. It runs in my family. When I've done my own nutrigenomics, I have like 3 SNPs for dopamine, and it's really helped me understand my behavior and how my brain works a lot. So I'm really interested in this and how it drives back to kidney disease. So L-tyrosine is one of the amino acids. It's used in a lot of different places, typically in the kidney world. If you're reading a lot of research about amino acids, plant-based diets, you'll see L-tyrosine come up because they'll talk about it being converted into a into paracresol, which is a uremic toxin. And so a lot of times L-tyrosine kind of gets the like, oh, it's not good, decrease your intake of it. L-tyrosine's in a lot of animal-based foods in particular. And so you'll hear a lot of negative talk about tyrosine with CKD. However, what I hope we unpack today is that it may not be exactly what we think with L-tyrosine. And L-tyrosine, I do think, can be a really, really helpful amino acid for people with kidney disease.
about it. So tell me how this ties into blood pressure control and then feed that into kidneys, because it was really interesting. One of the things that I did not know, and you mentioned this before we hit record, that there are dopamine receptors inside the kidney. So talk to me about that and blood pressure and then kidney health.
Okay. Um, so again, when we had kind of this light bulb moment about 3 years ago in our practice because we were doing nutrigenomics, where you can look at people's SNPs, how they're processing, different things. And I just noticed again and again that we would have people consistently with this DRD1, DRD2 SNP, which relates back to dopamine processing. And what we've done with genetics is like pretty much for every SNP, we go to Google Scholar, and we're like, hey, DRD1 and CKD, DRD2 and CKD. Those are the name of the SNPs, DRD1, DRD2. And I was like, oh, holy smokes, there is a connection to dopamine and the kidneys. Like, I think it's DRD2. I should have looked it up right before.
No, you're right. It's DRD2. Yeah.
It's DRD2. Okay, so I was like, we have dopamine receptors in the kidneys. What would be like the physiological function? Because in my mind, I was just thinking, oh, it's the happy hormone. Like, why do we need a happy hormone in our kidneys? But if you go look at you have to remember that dopamine, while it is this neurotransmitter in your brain, it also helps regulate other processes because it's a neurotransmitter. It's not just a hormone. I misspoke that. It's a neurotransmitter, which means it's involved with the nerve system. Guess what is very important in our kidneys in regulating or why the nervous system needs to be involved is with blood pressure because your nervous system is really tied into your vascular system, right? Because if you have vascular expansion or contraction, how is your body going to feel that unless it's attached to nerves, right? Your body has to have some way to be able to say, hey, these blood vessels have opened. Oh, these blood vessels have closed. That would be a censorship through the nervous system. So we started thinking about dopamine. Why would it be in the kidneys, and how does this link back to our patients on like what we're going to do with this information? And there's two really huge pieces for me. Is one, I started looking at blood pressure differently. So dopamine, and I gotta put my notes on this. So dopamine, interestingly enough, it helps promote the excretion of sodium from in your urine, right?
Mhm.
And it inhibits sodium reabsorption in the proximal tubule. And this is dopamine in particular. So these two things, excretion of sodium, sodium reabsorption, it also regulates renal blood flow, right? Expansion and contraction, which would make sense, right? Because this is like how the blood vessels are going to expand and contract. So it makes sense that actually that dopamine would be in those places, and it's really acutely tied to blood pressure because this excretion of sodium and this sodium reabsorption is very, very, very closely tied to how people are going to do with their blood pressure. So, kind of going back to practical basis, if I had patients that I could tell were driven by dopamine or they needed dopamine or that was, just an important part of how their body functioned and their blood pressure was tricky, that's a patient where we would talk about stress as a huge priority topic because stress really can drive down the dopamine process. But also, it's another patient that I would be very, very careful and thoughtful about putting on a very vegan plant-based diet because those tend to be a little bit more deficient in tyrosine. And B6, you have to have both of these B6 to help convert tyrosine to L-DOPA, which, is dopamine in your system. So for these patients and their kidney function with dopamine, I say, oh, like stress could be a driver of their kidney decline, right? Like
Mhm.
just that piece. Stress could be a cause of their kidney decline, not just because blood pressure goes up, but because of how it links back into these dopamine receptors. So that would be one underlying cause that we think about addressing. Number two, if we're struggling with blood pressure, which is going to cause nephron damage over time, glomerular damage, I would also want to be very cognizant of dopamine and making sure we have enough so that all these sodium excretion is going to run really well. And that would be linked, back to L-tyrosine. Do we have enough L-tyrosine to support what these people need genetically? So those would be like two big pieces that I would be looking at with dopamine and L-tyrosine, the precursor to dopamine.
Jessiana, as always, thank you so much for your wisdom. If you want to know more about what we do, head to www.kidneycoach.com. You'll find us on social media, on Instagram and Facebook under the same handle. And make sure you hit subscribe and like. That way you'll get notified anytime we put up more information. And stay tuned. Jessiana and I will be back in a couple of weeks or so to go down the rabbit hole of, I can't even remember what amino acid we've got next, but I know it's in the schedule there somewhere, Jess. So we will be digging into we'll be digging into the next amino acid on our list. Thank you again, Jessiana. You're always a wealth of wisdom. And for everyone listening, thank you for being part of our community. We look forward to seeing you next time.